defense leaders from our partner nations. This is not just a discussion, this is a diplomacy in action. Chairing this session is Major General Dr. Pawan Anand, Director of the United Service Institution of India. Major General Dr. Pawan Anand is a highly decorated officer from the Corps of Engineers and a recipient of the President's Gold Medal. He currently serves as the Director of the USI Center for Emerging Technologies for Atmanirbhar Bharat. With the PhD focus on indigenous India's defense industry, he is a recognized expert in PhD in cybersecurity and geostrategy. He has held senior international procurement roles and is a PhD guide at the University of Madras. He is the recipient of Ati Vishishta Seva Medal for his dedicated services for the forces. Thank you so much, sir. Please. And joining him on this prestigious panel are Shri Matthias Emil Bangstan, in 2024 First Secretary, Trade Policy and Economic Affairs, Embassy of Denmark in India. He is the First Secretary in 2024 Special Advisor, Critical Technology, Office for Economic Security, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, Copenhagen. In 2022, Special Advisor, AI and Quantum Technologies at Invest in Denmark, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, Copenhagen. Please. 2020, Head of Health, Maritime and Defense, Embassy of Denmark in Indonesia. 2019, Political and Economic Corridor, Embassy of Denmark in India. Ladies and gentlemen, Shri Matthias Emil Bangstan. And now we have Major General Ashok Kumar Dhingra. Is a veteran with 36 years of services, noted for establishing the Tri-Services Special Forces Division. He commanded an infantry division on the Indo-China border and served as the defense and military attaché to the USA from 2013 to 2016, where he focused on technology transfer and security cooperation. A former commander of the Parachute Brigade, he has extensive counter-insurgency experience and served as a UN military observer in Liberia. He holds an executive MBA and a PG in defense studies, offering deep insights into international partnerships and modern military strategy. And last but not the least, we have Shri Debnath Shaw, IFS, former High Commissioner to Tanzania. Shri Debnath Shaw joined the Indian Foreign Services in 1984, embarking on a distinguished career with diplomatic mission in Hong Kong, Beijing, Bonn and Dhaka. A former visiting fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. He served as Joint Secretary in both the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of External Affairs. His ambassadorial tenure includes serving as the Ambassador of India to Azerbaijan and the High Commissioner to Tanzania until his retirement in 2015. Post-retirement, he contributed as a consultant for the India-Africa Forum Summit, IAFS3, and served as an advisor to WAPCOS Limited under the Ministry of Jal Shakti for 4 years. Currently, he is an author on diplomatic and security issues and a strategic consultant helping SMEs expand their international presence. Ladies and gentlemen, panel is all yours. Guys, let's put your hands together for the gentlemen who are present here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have such an interesting panel with me. And after listening to what Shri Harsh Shringla had to say, I think this panel on a follow-up hopefully will add value to whatever we've been wanting to bring into when we talk about building global defense partnerships. For a long time, much in line with what Sri Shringla just said, the story of our defense industrial partnerships has been the language of transactions itself. It's all about buyers and sellers, it's all about contracts and deliveries. But defense usually is not only today about buying and selling. And if I may say so, India is no more now a customer, nor does it even seek to make others a mere customer. I think India seeks to have stakeholders together with it. India seeks that we should have a shared future with those who are like-minded partners with us. And for this, we are entering now from the old model of technology transfer to a new model of co-innovation, co-development, and co-production. For this, we should not differentiate between what we do with America, Europe, Russia, or Africa, or for that matter, any other country in the world, as long as the national interests are met and our partnerships are deep. Let us just say that our vision should be to create resilient supply chains, and these should be resilient by design. It is already visible in our partnerships now as we are creating these free trade agreements and deals with the European nations. We already have maritime surveillance networks. With Africans, we already have the peacekeeping missions, and also setting up our factories in African soil. You may have heard about how TASL has recently set up a factory for rolling out the wheeled armored platforms from Morocco. Indeed, we are now looking at India as a global distributed factory in the field of defense production. Another example for us is a landmark agreement that we have had with GE Aerospace and HAL, where we expect to have the 4 F404, 414 aircraft engines to be manufactured in India, notwithstanding the geopolitical standoffs that have taken place between us, and that despite signing contracts with the United States. We are also looking at European sensors through Saab's Giraffe radars. We are looking from Europe at naval systems, the Indo-French Scorpion class submarine upgrades, and we are looking at cyber resilience with the India-EU Trade and Technology Council, so that we have joint standards in 5G and 6G security and quantum computing to protect our critical infrastructure. The Indo-French roadmap is also envisioning co-designing heavy lift helicopters and advanced underwater drones. A number of these issues have been brought out during the course of the day today, but how closely are we going to take it forward with various countries is the moot question. Definitely, the war in Ukraine has also brought Europe's renewed focus onto defense, and the rearmament Europe program is taking place in a big way. Just to quote a figure, by 2030, Europe hopes to spend 860 billion euros on rearming itself. And herein lies a huge opportunity, not only for Europe, but also for partners like India, who would actually be probably looking at each other with common interest. We have with us the First Secretary from the Danish Embassy here, and I would like to bring out a few things that we also do with Denmark. In fact, Denmark stands out as a specialized partner for India. Our green strategic partnership has been a benchmark in sustainability, and we are also now expanding into defense and security on the same terms. The Danish company Terma AS provides radar and command and control systems for our naval vessels, and future collaboration for autonomous underwater vehicles, improving India's shipbuilding capabilities, should be on the cards. As the Arctic theater hots up, we would also look towards the Danes when it comes to ice-class vessel design and polar communication systems, which will help Indian naval architects as well. And we could talk about this as the panel goes on. When it comes to counter-terrorism and green defense, we already have an exploratory exercise going on with Denmark. In fact, I would say that the niche technologies and expertise in high-tech subsystems which come from Denmark would go very well with India's scalable defense production capabilities. And the two would make an absolute perfect marriage to bring together capabilities across the globe. When it comes to the United States, we have a 10-year framework agreement that was just signed, a major defense partnership, and the follow-up Compact 2025, which was announced in Washington. So let us hope the jet engines begin to fructify, cybersecurity comes up, and advanced aerospace systems also get developed or co-developed as we thought. I think that exactly is the collaborative spirit of the Bharat Defence Tech Show that we are doing today. I would say it's the heartbeat of all our discussions that has taken place today. So it would suffice for me to say that by 2029, we are looking at defense production going up to 3 lakh crores and doubling our export, as was mentioned in the morning by the Vice Chief of Air Staff, from 23,500 crores to 50,000 crores over the next 5 years, 3 to 4 years, in fact, not even 5 years. I would say ultimately the Viksit Bharat dream of 2047 would envision a self-reliant manufacturing hub in India, but also India being a pioneer of critical niche technologies. So I look forward to the remarks and the discussion that we are going to have with the extremely experienced panelists along with me. So I will then ask each of the panelists now to give up their opening remarks, and then I would ask them a couple of questions. Once we are through with that, we would throw questions open to the House, and all of this we hope to complete in about 40 minutes or so from now. So I am now going to request the First Secretary from the Danish Embassy, Mr. Bengtsen, to come out with his opening remarks. Over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. I don't per se have like remarks, but I think there's a few things I would like to highlight from I would say a Danish perspective, but also as a representative from the European Union in a sense. So I think this year has already been very important in the EU-India relations, and of course, I mean, as you all followed, we had our the whole leadership of the EU here recently. We signed a big FTA with India, which in itself is, of course, a significant and very important event. But I do think it also is important to mention this security and defense partnership that India and the EU also announced in the same summit. Because I think this really symbolizes also how the EU and India's relation is moving to an even closer and a more trusted direction. Because I think, as also the previous speaker was mentioning, of course, I mean, you had a traditionally maybe more other defense partners, and of course more focus on procuring maybe final technologies and products. While I think also in the EU's approach to this defense partnership, there is a lot of focus on industrial cooperation and how we also can support India's ambitions in terms of local production and technology transfer and so forth. So I think it's very important to remember this part of the EU-India partnership. And I think it's also very important that I think India has started to look at EU also as sort of a important player in itself, and not just as a lot of countries where you have bilateral relationships with. So I think that's something we're very welcoming from a Danish side. I mean, Denmark is not one of the big defense industry nations, of course. As the general mentioned, of course, we have companies like Therma that's very strong in radars. I think in general, you would say that Denmark in defense industry is more on the high-tech and niche technologies. So it could be like radars, drones, some of these like, you mentioned also quantum technologies. Many of these maybe dual-use areas is where we are really strong. And I think that also where you can find some interesting sort of innovation, collaboration, and technology partnerships with Denmark. We're never going to be the ones who are going to build big submarines together with India, of course, or some of the other things you mentioned that our neighboring countries are very strong in. But I think there are some niche areas where we really have the potential to explore further. And that's also why we think that this industrial defense industry partnership will be an important part of our relationship with India going forward. As was mentioned, we have a green strategic partnership. And now we are looking into upgrading that to a comprehensive green strategic partnership, where we will also exactly look into working together in more trust-based areas such as critical technologies and defense and security. So I think that is something that is very important for bringing our relationship to the next level. As you all know, of course, when you are really becoming close, that's when you start working on these more sensitive areas and these more trusted areas. So I think it's something we are looking forward to. I think Denmark being a very strong maritime nation, one of the areas that's also very interesting to look into is the naval side. As you probably know, I mean, Denmark is famous for being like a shipping nation. We have Maersk, one of the biggest container shipping lines in the world, and a lot of maritime technology providers who are, of course, delivering or offering their technologies to the commercial shipping sector, but there's also many of them who are actually supplying to naval vessels as well, also here in India, many of those companies that are here. So I think that's an area where we could see even more stronger collaboration, and many of these companies are already making in India. So I would say in general, I think most of the Danish companies are very committed to joint ventures and to supporting Make in India. I mean, Therma, as you mentioned, is also having local partners here and increasing localization. So that is definitely a focus area. I think on the political side, of course, you also have maritime security as an important focus. We are establishing a maritime security dialogue also with India, because of course, as two nations where freedom of navigation and sort of the protection of a rule-based order at sea is very important. This is also something where we see potential for strong collaboration. I think maybe I will stop here now, but then we can always discuss further later. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Bengtsen. I'll change tack a little bit. I'll ask you a question right away so that you've got your mind working and you've got mine working too. So I don't want to drop the G word with you, but let me put it this way. Just 2 days back, or was it a day back, Mr. Mark Rubio was there in the Munich Security Conference, and he started a form of a charm offensive with Europe, talking about historical ties and how the US is a child of Europe, so to say, and that remark went very well with everybody there in the room, and he got an ovation for it. But looking at it the other way, I mean, the pressure that has come on to Denmark from the United States was actually highlighted by both PM Frederiksen as well as the PM of Greenland, when they said that the last threat that we thought that would come to Greenland, that it would come from an ally and not from someone else, right? So I think that factor of trust perhaps will take some time to come back, to put it mildly. But my question is, today the US would be wanting to sell the F-35 aircrafts, let's say, to the European Union or even to India. How far do you think that rearmament Europe, as it goes forward, would like to be completely independent in the way it goes forward with its defense production? And what are the other partners that Europe would be looking for?
Hello? Okay, good, it's working, yes. Oh, okay, yeah, that's of course a little bit of a sensitive area you're touching on. I mean, the US, of course, is still our main security partner, and I mean, the F-35 program, we have Danish suppliers who are part of this as well. It's been one of the driving forces also behind companies like Therma growing. So of course we are still procuring things from the US. I think recently we just signed a rather large deal again with a US arms manufacturer. So I mean, that is not changing, but you are right that of course this whole rearming Europe has a strong focus on buying European as well. And I think that's also in general, when you mention, of course, India has, of course, the same focus. We're all looking for more strategic autonomy. We are looking to sort of strengthen our own industrial base, both because, of course, it can create manufacturing jobs and all that, but also for security reasons. So I think the general message, of course, is that when possible, we are trying to buy more European. But I mean, we are also in a very existential situation in the sense that we have Russia basically having a full-scale invasion in the European continent. So speed is also important in that sense. So we cannot rely fully on European defense production, I would say. But of course it is an ambition, and it's also something the European Commission has highlighted many times.
Yeah, so definitely you would be looking out, Europe would be looking out for diversified partners. And was just in the same question I had asked you, what are the kind of partners that you would be looking for?
So of course I would say I'm not an expert, of course, in when it comes to the different technologies that we need, since I don't have a defense background, first of all. So I'm more on the, of course, economic and trade side, and also like technology, I would say more emerging technologies and so forth. But of course, I mean, as I mentioned, if this new signaling between EU and India is maybe the first step to a closer relationship in this regard as well. And I mean, again, the main priority is to buy European, but I mean, I think I've heard other also ambassadors from neighboring countries and highlight that, of course, when there's something that we can't make ourselves right now, and you have a country like India that has the scale and the speed to sometimes provide certain things, and also thinking longer terms in terms of the partnerships we are creating between the big defense companies from Europe who are setting up joint ventures here, of course, it would be quite natural to imagine at some point that would become a more important potential base for also procuring things. But I mean, I'm not going to lie that, of course, right now it's still very much focused on Europe, and there's, of course, also this issue of compatibility and legacy around defense equipment that I'm no expert in, but I know that's, of course, also something that plays in. Yeah, but I don't see in the principle anything that would prevent Europe from looking a bit more to India for procuring certain things. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was a fair enough answer, and we will take it forward again after that. We'll let you off the hook at the moment with those sensitive questions. Yeah, I'm going to request Ambassador Manekshaw for his opening remarks, please.
Opportunity, and thank you organizers of the Bharat Defence Tech Show 2026 for inviting me to this panel. I have had some experience in the topic today of building defense partnerships during my tenure with the Ministry of Defense, but that was way back in 2005, 6, 7. But from my experience there, I think to build these defense partnerships, the first thing is to build trust, because this is a sensitive issue. The trust on both sides. I mean, even then we had some countries coming to us saying, will you sell us the BrahMos missile? But that was something that was off the table then. And so I think this was an era, or at least for the last decades, we've been trying to build trust and greater number of partnerships. First of all, the idea was to consolidate and strengthen the legacy partnerships, whether with the United States, UK, France, Italy, Germany, Israel, South Africa maybe. And then we had the next series of developing partnerships with countries which were developing rapidly, especially in the defense sector. One example I can think of was South Korea. And the third category then I would say was countries previously not very trustful of India, especially in the defense sector, mostly countries in the Middle East. But this was the era when they were stepping out and approaching us to at least start a dialogue, start something, start a defense partnership. And today, of course, the scenario has changed, and many of these countries are very vibrant partners with India, particularly in the Middle East. Coming to the present situation, I would say that we should make, while we, of course, maintain and strengthen our legacy partnerships with the countries concerned, the developing partnerships with other countries like in Asia and elsewhere, maybe even in South America, partnerships with countries which have gained our trust, which now look to India as also not just as a provider of security, but as somebody they can also hedge against, or not be reliant only on one particular partner. So they want other partners. I think at this stage, what I would recommend is that as a member and a leading member of the Global South, India should make greater efforts towards developing defense partnerships with countries in the Global South, particularly in Africa, Asia, Central Asia, and even in the far corners of the earth in South America and Latin America, because defense partnership, defense diplomacy is an important area for India. It not only provides us access to markets, but also we have geostrategic concerns, we have security concerns. Particularly, I know from my experience with Africa and Central Asia that here are countries where we need to have greater dialogue with them. We need to have institutional dialogue so that we can exchange intelligence or information, as some person said. We use our strengths, particularly in training and counterterrorism and other such areas, peacekeeping, to build these partnerships, which also help to bring about greater security for us, especially in our neighborhood and in the Indian Ocean region. And therefore, I think this is an area where, as we move forward, we should make more effort, particularly developing the defense partnerships with countries of the Global South. Coming to our defense technology, which of course we are gaining in strength to strength by, first of all, tying up with the legacy partners, encouraging them to not just sell platforms to us, but also to take on us as a partner, both in, as one mentioned by my esteemed colleague, the Honourable Member of Parliament, in co-development, co-production. First of a good example of which was BrahMos, which was just coming into focus in those days. But also to build trust among the countries in the Global South who are looking for such partnerships, who are looking to procure defense equipment, security equipment. There, I think, particularly given the African situation, we are a little behind many countries, including China, Russia, US, and European countries. And I think here we can make some specific effort. One is to be more visible, not just invite them to our air shows or defense tech shows, but also to go and participate in events that take place in those regions. We should be a little bit more flexible because finance is an important issue. I know we've started with defense lines of credit, but maybe we can ramp that up. And also countries, again from my experience in Africa, they want not that you sell them the complete just the platform itself, but also involve them in at least part of the manufacturing or service project, whether you assemble the platform as the Tatas are doing or going to do in Morocco, or you set up an MRO base there, so to provide the servicing of the equipment. So some way to involve the local population so that they also feel that they're part of the partnership. So I think with these few suggestions, I will stop at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think you really came up with some very interesting points, but just to continue with the same line of thought, and most importantly, I think you started off with saying that the whole thing in defense partnerships is about building trust. And when it comes to building trust, I think it just doesn't happen by dialogues only or by military exercises only. I think trust gets built up by many other factors which come in, and common interests have to be identified and pursued. In our case, I would say also, as you took it forward to say that when we go with the Africans, we could look at MROs and manufacturing hubs with them. My understanding would be that we need to have interdependencies between the two partners to create trust, because trust will come once there is a material benefit for both sides, or there is a material loss for both sides. When one wins, the other also wins. When one loses, the other also loses, if I may put it that way. So, what are the kind of interdependencies that we can create? Of course, you spoke about MROs and manufacturing hubs, but what are those interdependencies that we can create with those whom we want to export, or with those whom we want to partner to bring in better technologies into India?
Yes, I think, I don't know, is this, yeah. I don't know whether we can really build trust just on defense sector alone, because this is a whole game. So, but when the partner is trustful of India's intentions, of the partner's intentions, and then you involve the partner in further ways. For example, one thing I find missing between African countries and India is the dialogue between think tanks, between intellectuals who have done a lot of work. But I know we sponsor a few, IDSA does try to do some, but it's rather at a low level. This is something we can start building on, having a greater defense and security dialogue with our global South partners. Of course, to the extent we can have increased training offers that we give, the joint exercises that we do. Again, if you have a naval exercise, it may not be possible for all the partners to bring in their assets to your thing. So maybe we go out more there to show that we want to do exercises, and since they can't come, we go there. Sometimes I know partners once who said that I don't have eyes in the sky. Can you supply me radar, the whole radar system? And well, we try to do our best. Somebody who needed a thing, so we respond to their thing. We ask, let them tell us what they need. That is one way. And of course, these partners they are not very strong in their manufacturing, so they are acquiring defense equipment, technology, or special equipment from all sorts of sources all across the world. And here, I think we need to make a greater effort. And one of the ways, of course, our quality has to be guaranteed. Then the price has to be reasonable. But I think most important is that they have to be sure that yes, they will get regular supplies, that service will not be an issue, and financing is something also we need to arrange with these sort of partnerships. And I think that will go a long way in slowly building up our constituency in these countries.
Yeah, I see your point, because over the years, I think our security dialogue with the Middle East has certainly gone up, and those interdependencies have not been purely defense. Actually, it would have started off with economic security, and now it has gone towards a defense, pact with the UAE. So food security on one side and defense security on the other side. I think these two go hand in hand, and maybe many more things. So the dependencies don't need to be in one particular field, and that's my takeaway on that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm now going to request General Dhingra to come up with his opening remarks, and with the experience that he has had not only in the Special Forces but also having been the Defense Attaché in the United States.
Chair, fellow panelists, Ambassador Shringla sir, General Gaur, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege and an honor, and thank you so much for this opportunity to be a part of this panel. Since the morning, we have witnessed that largely the theme has been self-reliance, Atmanirbharta. And most of the speakers and panelists have emphasized, the reasons are very clear to us, why we need to be self-reliant. Our topic of developing global partnerships actually runs contrary to that very theme. But there is a take to it that no man is an island, not everything can be done by you on your own self. You need partners, you need friends, you need others to help you out in this journey of defense modernization. So to that an extent, I will put across 3 to 4 points which, while still progressing on the theme of self-reliance, will emphasize that the global partnerships is perhaps one of the good ways to move forward in our quest for defense modernization, especially after our experiences, recent experiences of Sindoor, and prior to that, in addition to what is happening around us in the world. The technologies have all been enumerated. I mean, we know what kind of forward-looking enhancements are required, whether it is in those various fields, robotics and AI and machine learning, unmanned warfare, the UAVs, space and surveillance. I mean, these have all been actually part of our sessions. They are major focus areas where we need to move forward. So to that an extent, self-reliance, like I said, it is not, not to be seen in isolation. We can actually collaborate and, get together. Of course, like it's been said, that trust will be, the basic foundation of any such mechanism. But with that, we can, because, not everyone can do everything. I mean, the way these technologies are progressing, the way they are expanding, the kind of reach that they are taking, I mean, there is not a sole provider. No one nation has it all. I mean, there are critical materials, there are critical technologies, and the interdependence just comes in. So self-reliance through interdependence is also perhaps, one of the modes that has to be progressed alongside, our other means of modernization. And the global defense partnership is a good way to move ahead in that direction. Again, we come to, armaments and procurements of that, and, kind of restrict ourselves to global partnerships in that sphere. But again, that is not the case, because I remember, like in the US, when I was there initially for the first year or two, there were no major procurements at all. And we as attaches had very little in terms of, because otherwise, any bulk procurements take maximum of your time. But we were doing phenomenal work in terms of, joint training, developing interoperability together, huge exercises, and, those cross connects. And as the doors opened towards, very meaningful procurements down the line, it all fell into place. So, in addition to procurements, of course, India as a trusted partner, as Ambassador Shingla brought out, especially as a net security provider for Indo-Pacific, and a good partner among friends. Obviously, we need to be interoperable with our friends, and this global partnership helps us in that direction. So, while we innovate, while we integrate among each other, we also need to look at our friends abroad who can help us in this particular phase when we are trying to modernize, and when especially the cycles are long and we want to reduce the time drastically, we can actually get into some kind of arrangements with them. And like it has been brought out, we are no longer a buyer's market. We are now more into co-development and co-production. And the moment you get into co-development, obviously you also have equal share of, the technology and the IPRs, whatever are being researched on. And that is where, you are also able to build trust among each other. So I'll close with this thought that, let not self-reliance be just like building walls all around us. It is more of, especially the global partnerships actually dictate to us that it is the bridges that we have to build across, and with trusted and willing partners. Thank you.
So thank you, thank you, Ashok. If I may call you that. Ladies and gentlemen, he's an old batchmate, an old friend. What you probably don't know about him is something remarkable in him. During the Sri Lanka operations, he got shot in his right arm. He has a beautiful handwriting, and he started writing with his left hand. And his handwriting was just as beautiful with the left hand. So remarkable resilience with this gentleman here. But I have a question for you, which I'm going to actually throw a challenge to what you just said. So, the Indian dependence on Russian arms had gone up to 68 to 70%. I personally have operated on from T-55s to T-72s to T-90s. And today, we are at a stage where we're down to almost 38, 39%. So we've actually brought our dependence down on the Russians. And the premise was that we would make a lot of it ourselves, and we would get a lot of help from the West to bring it up. And that perhaps has not really happened the way we hoped that it would, if I may say so. So we did have the DTTI with the US. It didn't really work, and we spoke about it. There's hardly any technology transfer that took place from the US. Then later on, we had something called the ISET. All of you would be aware of it. Nothing has come out of the ISET. Today, we talk about something called TRUST. Also matches with the word called trust, as you said, sir. But I don't see anything coming out of the trust initiative as well. We signed contracts for the GE F404 engines. We're yet to get the third or fourth engine. Forget about the entire bunch that we contracted for. So the point I'm coming to is, today we are going back to having a trustworthy relationship once again with the US, based on certain geopolitical disruptions, and then those disruptions being kind of ironed out once again. Do you think that we will be able to take forward what we had hoped to take forward with them in DTTI, ISET, and now Trust?
Yes, it has been a long timeline in terms of, these very agreements that we have reached with them. And I mean, frustrations on both the sides in terms of nothing really tangible that has come about after, so much of efforts and so much of trials in terms of, getting somewhere after identifying, realistic technologies which perhaps we could co-develop or, then move on to the next stages. I think that has got more to do with the bureaucracy on both the sides, because somehow it takes very long to understand each other's system, and perhaps that itself took undue delays. And thereafter, of course, these are things which are very flexible, and things keep changing, in terms of by the time our side would identify and actually want a particular technology, the other side would have moved on and would have perhaps, for want of whatever, not adequate response or, time, would perhaps, not be willing to part with it or not to, move forward on it, and would suggest something else. And then you would start, back on the slate and, back on the drawing board again and start all over again. And it's highly bureaucratic, so it does take a lot of time.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I have personally done 3 appointments on procurements, and one of them was international procurements. And I was dealing with 17 countries. The US was one of them in 2014. The foreign military sales procedure is 2 thick tomes which you have to go through to get anything to be bought from there. Every single indent goes all the way to the US Congress to be cleared. So it's a very lengthy procedure, and the bureaucracy is on both sides. It's as much on our side perhaps. But I think hopefully we'll be heading for something better. But you see, today we have procured from the US over the time that we are talking over the last decade and a half. We have procured maritime surveillance aircraft. We have procured Predator drones. We have procured transport aircraft from them. So there has been, we initially got the ANTPQ radars. I was struggling to get spares for them from the US. And at the same time, we bought the 777 RT guns from them, M777s. Now, with all this having happened, it was still a buyer-seller relationship. Do you think it's going to change, and will there be any technologies that will get exchanged on either side, or is it just going to remain a buyer-seller with them?
No, actually, again, the DPP that was prevailing upon at that time, this was mainly by decision. Though it was government-to-government contract, but all the same, we ended up buying, and like, it has been emphasized, the kind of offsets that we had, we really didn't get the meat out of, those offsets, whatever percentages. So that, to that an extent, this has been clean buy, and so obviously there's hardly been, worth transfer of technology. But going forward, and now with the, the procurement procedures themselves undergoing that kind of a change, I suppose any fresh, deals that are being signed, it has to be make in India and, co-develop and co-produce. Hopefully we will see that, things will get better.
Yeah, I think we should always think that it's going to get better, and there is an indication that things would improve, hopefully. Ambassador, coming back to you, and with your experience in Africa, and especially, I think, Tanzania, what do you think our scope would be to develop defense diplomacy and specifically defense industrial relationships beyond a certain point? we look at them as a market. We also look at them perhaps as production partners, as Tata's has done with Morocco, and probably through Morocco start selling into Africa itself. I'm also personally aware that a number of governments are looking for outright purchases from India but are unable to find a way through to India. How can we make, and you did speak about our visibility over there, how can we make ourselves more available to them so that they are able to approach us easily and buy from us? Many of them want to, and I could name a few countries. People have spoken with me at times just because of, being in the talking circuits. So you would have also experienced it, and I would like to know, how do you think that can be taken forward and made use of by us?
Yeah, yeah, you're exactly right that defense diplomacy needs to be ramped up really with countries in Africa and other developing countries, which frankly again is a market for us because these are countries which don't produce much of their own, and the capabilities will take a long time, including the scale also. So they are dependent, they are buying from other countries, they are, but to ramp up our, let us say, partnership and sales to such countries, we need to, one is of course be more visible, invite more of them to our shows, bring our, or take our platforms and technologies to them to show that it is no less or than what they are currently procuring, that there is a on a price there is some sort of stability on supplies, on servicing, on because these platforms need to be serviced for maybe 20-30 years. So this would, I think, but I think what mostly stops buyers is finance, and there is that something we would have to look really seriously, because there are countries, including our big neighbor, who are quite free with the financing such procurements, and we really need to take a good look at that.
Yeah, thank you. Just a last question to First Secretary Bengtson. The India-Europe partnership is now hopefully on the cards, and we have the EU FTA, which is yet to be operationalized, but should be getting operationalized very soon. How do you think the innovation aspects, and you said, Denmark is a small country, but you have a very high innovation index, perhaps. Similarly, Switzerland has a very high innovation index. How can the innovation aspects be brought together between our two countries? Denmark, maybe even Switzerland, maybe other smaller countries. For example, Belgium has got ASML. I mean, and that's really the Netherlands has got ASML, which is a remarkable technology for chip making. So where do you think our interests and commonality would bring us together on these things? How can we do this?
Thank you so much. So of course, I think this is a key area for sure, where we need to work more. I think for now, of course, we've seen that a lot of the companies in general from Europe are starting to have more and more R&D in India. I can see that with our own companies, with all the global capability centers and all that. Of course, that's mostly civilian. But that being said, I think, again, coming back to this issue of trust, I think, but the positive direction of trust creation. Of course, it's no secret that, I think there has been some concern in the past in terms of how critical things we could sort of do with India in terms of innovation and technology in the defense area. But I'm seeing more and more that this is becoming less of a concern, and I think because it has to do with this trust building and then taking the next step. You just had this discussion about US as well, of course, that they might want to sell certain things to India, but they might not want to actually do any technology transfer. And of course, that is always a difficult topic. But I think we're seeing more and more commitments to this. And of course, I would also say, just being very frank, that with the dependency on Russia going down, it also is helping this discussion from our side, I would say. That's very clear. I mean, as a diplomat, I mean, it's to say it like this. Of course, you know that has always been a concern, but at the same time, I also understand the dilemma that, of course, you want to replace that relation with another sort of co-development relation, right? So it's, but anyway, I think in innovation, I mean, India has a lot of talent, also a lot of skills, and I mean, we will be needing this, and I think at this stage, I mean, there's no way around, I think, doing more innovation partnerships with India, where we are going ahead now. Yeah.
Is Denmark planning to set up some GCCs here?
We have a lot already. So, I mean, some of the biggest companies like Maersk, Novo Nordisk, Vestas, those kind of companies that are quite sizable companies, they all have quite big GCCs with thousands of people here. And I know many of them are doing AI solutions and stuff here. So it's not just the classic, like maybe when they set up 15 years ago when it was more sort of an outsourcing exercise, but a lot of them are doing a lot of their really advanced stuff here. And I also know we have on the consultancy side, like Covi, Ramble, these kind of companies, basically anything that most of what they are, for instance, bridges and so forth, that they are making in Europe and US are being sort of modeled here by their engineers. So, I mean, it's definitely, I think, in terms of technology level, it's getting more and more and more and more intense. So I think that's already a really positive sign. But of course, again, from there to the defense side, it's always a bit trickier, I think. But I think
dual use would perhaps be the way forward.
Yeah, exactly. It will be already moving there a bit, but it's and I think that will happen. But of course, it always, again, one step at a time, and then the more trust. And with this new partnership between India and EU, I think is paving maybe the way for further engagements. Right. I'm hoping, at least.
Yeah. So we are almost out of time. If there are any questions, we can we'll go in for questions. In case there are any. Okay, I think we've. Oh, there is a question.
This lady.
All right, the lady there, please.
Sorry. Thank you. So I really appreciate the points that you have made regarding the innovations and collaborations between both the aspects. I would also like to know, more curious to know how the startups of the countries can have a scope in collaborating with these initiatives.
So do you want to throw the question to the First Secretary?
Yes.
Okay.
Or, it's open to anyone.
Open to anybody, but we'll start with him.
Yes, I think definitely, India is quite famous now for the massive startup ecosystem in general. We already see some collaborations, I think, also with startups from Denmark. And in terms of, from a defense angle, I think that's another thing that I mean, without being an expert, but at least I know a bit more thing about emerging technologies than actually classic defense. And I mean, what you're seeing now, I think a lot of these technologies will be more dominant in the defense field again. So I also think that maybe it could make it easier also for India's more of tech ecosystem to leapfrog in terms of defense, because I mean, you see, I can also see in our startups or smaller companies in Denmark, you have all these drone companies and others that are suddenly becoming very relevant in a defense context, also for being affordable and easy, and you can make them quick, and that might be more necessary now than the most advanced of the advanced system. I mean, you see that a lot on the battlefield in Ukraine, right? So I think that also is an opportunity, of course, for India's defense. And you see in Silicon Valley, of course, the amount of money suddenly going into defense tech and all that compared to before the war in Ukraine. And so, I think
are you from a startup? Are you from a startup?
No, but I work with a couple of startups. So.
All right. So I think what we're probably looking at is how can startups approach the European industrial community to find their way in and cooperate with them. And maybe I'm sure the embassies would be looking forward to such trade kind of exchanges.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think most European embassies are having innovation centers in India, and they do partner startups. Ours is based in Bangalore, but I mean, always welcome to reach out and if you have in contact with startups who are looking for collaborations. Yeah.
All right. In the interest of time, I think we'll have to close this panel, and all is left for me is to request all of you to give a good applause to our panelists who've given us their thoughts here.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. And Major General Dr. Anand, thank you for this extraordinary dialogue. But before we move on to the next session, I would request Major General Dr. Pawan Anand to please felicitate all the panels. Now I request Major General Dhingra to please felicitate our moderator. Thank you so much. What we witnessed here was not just conversation, it was a blueprint for collaboration, a foundation for trust, a commitment to shared security. India doesn't stand alone, and neither does any nation facing 21st century threats. Together, we are stronger. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, as we approach the final session of day one, let us turn our attention to the heart of the summit, innovation. Because wars are no longer won by the largest armies. They are won by the smartest system. AI predicting enemy movements, cyber weapons disabling infrastructure, space assets providing battlefield intelligence, quantum encryption securing communications. This is modern warfare, and India is at the forefront.